Welcome back to ESBR Boxing in partnership with sharpbetting.co.uk. This is a reaction video to the news that Fabio Wardley will fight Jarrell Big Baby Miller on June the 7th at Portman Road, Ipswich Town Football Club. Delighted as always to be joined by Niall. Niall, good to speak to you. Thanks for jumping on. Um, a big heavyweight fight, with the winner getting close to fighting for a world title in 2026. Give us your instant reaction to this one being announced, please.
I really like this fight. I think it's a really interesting fight. For both men, really. For Wardley and Miller, I think it's an appropriate step up for Wardley. And I think Miller will really fancy his chances as well. It's a Miller coming off a good performance against Andy Ruiz, after the disappointing performance against Daniel Dubois. So he'll be full of confidence coming into this fight. And I think stylistically, both men very aggressive, big punchers, volume punchers. I think it's has the makings of a really fascinating fight. So yeah, I was delighted to see this one get announced. I really was.
Yeah, and say what you like about Big Baby Miller. The build-up will be good. There's a press conference taking place in Ipswich on Monday afternoon. It's a shame that Joshua fight never happened, but the build-up to it was good. And yeah, look, it's intriguing on Miller. Just the one loss on his record, a final round stoppage to Daniel Dubois. I thought that loss has aged quite well. If you look what Dubois has gone on to do, and obviously Miller, we're not going to deny, the failed drugs tests, the periods of inactivity due to that, coming in overweight in fights. However, when it comes to kind of how he's performed, he's won every fight apart from that fight against Daniel Dubois. Is this a better fight than the Pulev fight for you, Noel? That was the fight that it sounded like that fight was going to be made for the WBA regular. We don't know why that fight hasn't happened, but yeah, give us your thoughts on comparing this one to the Pulev fight.
I think it is a better fight. As I mentioned, stylistically, I just think it's way more of an explosive fight. Pulev not the most stylistically pleasing on the eye. Yeah, just on that fight, I think if that fight had have kind of materialized, I would have fancied Wardley to beat Pulev, to be honest with you. At this stage of Pulev's career, into his 40s now, he's a very good boxer, but I think he's very back foot, technical kind of, that sort of style. Quite boring, some might say. So I think Jarrell Miller is going to bring the fight more than Kubrat Pulev would have done. So I think it'll just lend itself to a really fascinating fight. I really do. It'll play into Wardley's hands, but Wardley's style will play into Miller's hands in periods of this fight. So yeah, I think the Pulev fight would have been definitely a winnable fight for Wardley, and I know, they would have been calling him a world champion, although it's a WBA regular belt, so that's I suppose for a different day. But yeah, I think stylistically this is a much better fight than the Pulev fight. So I'm way more happy that this one is what we're getting rather than that, I suppose. Although I would have fancied Wardley to pick up a strap there.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with you. I also think Pulev is about to turn 44 years old. And I think that the casual fan will maybe look at that and then not give Wardley the credit he should get if he were to beat Pulev, which isn't fair, but you can't deny Pulev is at an age now where you don't see many boxers still going at the age of 44. Couple more from me now before I let you go. Um, One issue we've got here is there is a clash, um, which is interesting because with Matchroom and Queensbury both on DAZN now, we're no longer going to get clashes with those shows. However, there is a clash with another football stadium show happening on Sky Sports the same night. Callum Simpson is fighting for the European title at the Oakwell in Oakwell at Barnsley. Um, I'm not pleased about this. I think it's a shame. However, when you look at dates, when you're trying to fight at a football stadium, apparently it needs to happen quite soon after the season's finished because and too long before pre-season starts. The weekend before it's the Champions League final, so I understand why they don't want to go there. the weekend before that. The season's still going on, but there's on the I think it's the 26th of May is a bank holiday here in the UK, so you could have had it on the 25th. However, Queensbury have got a show on the 24th, so I understand why it's happened on this date. I hope it's not happening just because Queensbury basically want to shit on Boxer and have arguably a bigger fight on the same night. Could it have happened the week after on June the 14th? I don't see why not, but we'll see. Look, hopefully these questions get asked at the press conference. So I could just kind of get your thoughts on that and kind of what fight you'll be going for if you've got a decision to make and the fights happen at the same time.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. I hadn't realized until you kind of mentioned it to me off camera that this is clashing. So I hadn't kind of occurred to me, and it is a shame, to be honest, as you say. You know, Callum Simpson is in an interesting fight, in my opinion, against the Italian, big puncher. Very kind of interesting fight, that one for the European title. So. Yeah, it's a pity. Hopefully, when it comes to kind of main event times, there's no real clashes. Hopefully, we get lucky and there's no kind of overlap there. But if I had to choose, I'd be picking Fabio Wardley. I just think it's a more exciting fight, kind of more more high stakes fight, I suppose. But yeah, just a more kind of entertaining fight, in my opinion. I get what you're saying as well. There's only a small window that's available for these stadium shows, these football stadium shows. So they were kind of tied. They had their hands tied a bit, but. Yeah, it's a pity, but I'd be picking Fabio Wardley to watch there now if I had to choose, in my opinion. But as I say, hopefully there's no kind of overlap. But yeah, it'll be another thing just on the stadium shows as well for both men, really, for both fights. It'll be interesting to see how well they kind of do ticket wise. Fabio Wardley fighting in Ipswich for the first time in the stadium and Callum Simpson fighting in Barnsley. So it'll be very interesting to see what they do, business wise there. But yeah, it'll be Wardley for me if it comes down to it.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I think there's a bigger conversation over what happens for the winner with the Wardley fight as well. But it's quite, in a way, I think it's something to be proud of, the fact that there are two football stadium shows happening on the same night and they were able to do that. And it'd be interesting to see this fight and the Callum Simpson fight, how many tickets are sold as well. All right, now final question. Keen to get an early prediction, as always. Got 2 months to go, so there's plenty of time to think about it. But yeah, if you look at Fabio Wardley, obviously fantastic win over Fraser Clark last time out, brutal KO. Um, when you take away kind of the win over Fraser Clark and the draw over Fraser Clark, there's still kind of decent names on his resume, but Jarrell Miller's kind of operated at a higher level. Give us your prediction for this one, please.
Yeah, as you said there, and as I said at the start of the video, it's a appropriate step up. I think it's a really kind of fascinating next step up, and Miller's coming in with confidence after the Ruiz fight. I think it's going to be explosive, as I said, stylistically fascinating. I can see. I think Wardley stops him late here. But I'm gonna put a little caveat in and saying that I think Miller might hurt him or drop him early.
Mm.
But the thing that I love about Fabio Wardley is when you hurt him, it's like he kind of steps it up a gear then. He's like it's like a red rag to a bull and he steps it up and puts even more pressure on his man and gets him out there. So I think Miller will have success early. Maybe drop Fabio Wardley and Wardley to kind of regroup and get him out there. I'll say round nine stoppage for Fabio Wardley for me. But yeah, it's going to be a great fight. This I can't wait for.
Yeah, it's exciting. I'll join. Another factor in this fight is what sort of shape is Miller turning up in. He's obviously having notice for this fight, but last fight was August, so a little while ago. Is that against Andy Ruiz? Has he been living the life since then? I'm not so sure. So, but I'll join you with a I'll join you with a late Wardley stoppage. Yeah, but we'll see. I'm looking forward to this one. It's could be one of the biggest fights to happen in the UK this summer. So one to look forward to. Niall, good to be joined by you as always. I will speak to you again very, very soon.
Cheers, take care.